Hello,
Hello.
we're back.
Day 3 of Naricon.
Yeah, um, we're gonna do a bit of a behind the scenes look today. If I can get Unity to pop up on my screen, I think it's importing assets.
Might take an additional 2 minutes in that case.
What's it doing? I don't know. Has Unity crashed?
Oh, typical.
Oh, okay. I've got it up.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Thank God. Alright, reload, yes. Because I've switched over to the demo branch of the game, so we can play through that. And hey, Beck, and hey, Ellie.
Hello.
We can play through the demo and look at how it's doing all of its stuff.
Oh boy.
It does
That's
that.
how the game looks like.
It does that. It just needs a sec. That's just Unity.
Yeah.
Like literally, Unity would just do things like that.
Yeah, it does it for like when I just enter play mode and then it just flashes blue constantly. I'm like, ooh, Jesus.
So we start off. This is like spoilers right now. We start off on the studio. Well, I suppose we start off on Ferrari Road. We can start with Ferrari Road and how that works.
Yeah.
So let's hop into that scene. And let's just look at that scene before we start playing it. So Ferrari Road's got quite a lot going on in the scene.
Yeah, it's actually like quite big,
yeah,
considering how little we show.
Well, it does. You do get to see all of these places. Like anything that's outside the camera at any point. I
Like,
do
as
cut
in, like,
out.
you know, you only see them for a split second.
Yeah,
For the most part.
You know, it's not about how long you see it. It's that you did get to see it.
Yeah.
You can see the shack over here, which we can sort of dig into how that works in a bit, I guess. But yeah, so essentially in Unity you have your scene view, which is over here, and your game view, which we can see down at the bottom here. The scene is just the 3D space where you sort of do all your construction of the game, and the game view is what you will see when you're playing it. You've got your hierarchy on the left, which contains every object in the scene. A scene, I guess you can think about it as like a level. It's just a place where you construct all of your assets together. And then on the right you've got the inspector, and this is where you can edit all the properties of each object. Don't worry if that doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll kind of explain it a bit more as we go along.
I should, be noting these things down, because I actually don't do any of the Unity work. If I do, it's kind of like importing assets, like character stuff mainly, and trying to find a good blend for animations. But like, in terms of setting everything up and building it, that's what Cell and Addy do, basically. Yeah. So.
Well, in terms of sort of setting it up, that's mostly what I do. Addy it does some of that, but I'm mostly sort of involved in like the sort of I don't know, the grunt work of like putting everything together.
Yeah.
So like over here, you'll notice that like the some of the tree geometry is actually flat.
It's for optimization, baby.
Yeah.
We actually do this a lot in the main game, No Longer Home, as well, just because there's a lot of bushes. Bushes have a lot of polygons, and yeah, we just can't have them all be like not rendered, but like fully polygonal. It's just gonna take a toll on Unity.
I'm not going to explain this in too much detail, but we do have another scene called the master that has all of like the sort of like managers for all of the all sort of different parts of the game, like the scene, audio, and graphics. And so we load in through that scene first before loading up any other scene, and this just makes sure that everything loads in correctly. And so like in file up here we have scene auto load, where we can select what scene the master scene is, whether or not to load that, because we might just want to like jump straight into a scene and edit directly from there for whatever reason. But yeah, so when I hit play, it will load up the master, and then from there it will load up the Friary Road scene.
Is that like a basic Unity thing? Like, does it always?
No, that's a system that Addy set up for us.
I don't even know this, and it's quite embarrassing. I think this is
It's fine.
This is the stream where I show my entire ass to the world.
You'll be learning a lot. So right now we're just in the master because that's where all like the title like splash screens are, and then we've got like a don't destroy and loads scene, which I don't know exactly what this contains, but I think it mostly contains the managers, so that persists as you're loading between scenes. I think that's how it works. And then can we zoom out? Okay, there it is. There's the actual camera that's on this text over here. There's
it's always really weird
canvas.
to see stuff like this out of context.
Yeah, so this is just like on a 2D plane. Unity has these things called canvases, which you can like stretch and pull. So if the resolution changes, then this corrects it for you. Twitch bans you for that. I missed what Twitch bans you for, Beck. Sorry.
I think that's about
slow with
showing
chat.
my entire ass.
Oh, showing your entire. Yeah. Okay. Hey Panda, how's it going?
Hello.
In the GUI
showing
canvas.
My entire ass.
Right,
showing
so
my ass.
let me pause the game.
What was it?
So now we have the Friary Road scene in here, which is somewhere over there. There it is. There's the scene. So if I just select an object and hit F, that will focus on it. Let's focus on that tree. It's close enough to the center. So there's Bo and Owl over there. But I don't think they're actually rendered on this camera, are they? This camera just rendered as chairs, which I think is for a thing later in the game.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Hello,
Hey, how's it going? So we open up the camera pivots section. We've got our main camera, which is just rendering the background. And then we've got the stars camera, which you can't see because there's no stars showing at the moment. But that literally just renders the stars in the background as well. And then we've got the shack cam, which renders the shack. Pretty self-explanatory.
So I'm guessing, like, if you combine all cameras into one, or like try to render everything through just one camera, nothing will actually work.
Yeah. Well, wait, sorry, what was the question?
Like, if you only render everything through one camera, then obviously you won't get like the same sort of cinematics, because everything you're just seeing at the same time.
It's what we use to pull off some sort of like layering effects. Also, hi Lottie. Lottie
hello.
Is a programmer in the game. Yeah, Lottie's making sure that like our game works with like controller input and a bunch of other stuff.
makes a lot of the magic happen with
Yeah.
Addy.
So, okay, let's keep going and we can kind of see what's happening. So, over here of the shack, so the shack here has a clipping material. I need to find what where the material is that like edits it. And just to expand this so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe I'll just search shack and see if is it clipping? It's been a long time since I've looked at this scene, so forgive me. It'll take a while to remember how this actually works. But basically there's like a cube here which tells the shader what part of the mesh to render. Where is it? Okay, well, if we jump into the flowchart, this is where I can show you some other stuff. So we use Fungus, which is a third-party open source software that's free. We use it for dialogue and transitions. Chungus. So we've got like 3 separate photo shots here. One's for setup, which there isn't much to do with setup in Furry Road. That just tells it to fade in. And then we've got one for the dialogue. So this is basically a dialogue tree where you've got all the lines here, and then when it splits off, you can choose either of these options. It also has the music cues in blue here. But what we're looking for is the transitions. So Phantom Plane is the object.
I'll be extremely honest, I've not seen the transition editor.
You haven't seen any of that? I guess you've seen the dialogue.
No, I've never seen it before. I've seen dialogue, definitely, and I've seen like animation trees, obviously. But in terms of transition, like, I don't touch any of that at all. I just leave everything to Cell.
So now we're in play mode. I can play with this, so as I move this, I can rotate it as well. It renders the mesh
too late now,
depending on that. Well, you can see in the scene view.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how that works. I couldn't really tell you how the shader works on a technical level, because I honestly have no clue. My like knowledge of code is very, very limited. But yeah, so
none.
To go back into the transition editor, basically what we have in Fungus is these blocks, and then within that we have commands we can put in them. So here we've got a command that's just like waiting for 1 second before we move on to the next command. And here we're calling a sound cue, and this one moves the camera over here. So that whole sequence where the where Bo and Al kind of descend and pivot around, that's controlled by this. So that's moving down, and then we've got rotate here. So this command that rotates them there. And then we've got focus camera commands. So that basically controls how the camera zooms in. So where's the background camera from the master? Where's the cameras? There are the cameras. Don't want the shack one or the stars. Chair camera. Okay. So basically we can zoom in. So that there's some duplicate chairs there. I wonder what...
Why are there duplicate chairs?
Because there's a bit later in the game where we make burnout fade out with just the chairs left, and so this technically doesn't need to be on right now because it's not really rendering anything, it's just rendering additional chairs. But we just use that so that once burnout are gone, it doesn't also make those chairs go, and those stay in place.
Yeah. And then get silhouetted.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the character camera. Oh, there it is. So yeah, you can see in the camera preview over here that it's just rendering Bo and now on the chairs. So if I hide that, that hides both the characters and the chairs. So let's skip through a bunch of dialogue until we get to the next transition. Well, I can show you how the dialogue works in the flowchart while we do that, I guess. So what line are we on? So we're on this option here, which are these two blocks. And so if I select this first one, it's going to send me into this block, which it did. And now I'm on this line over here, which is highlighted. And we also got this music cue.
Yeah, I guess like dialogue flowchart stuff's usually quite self-explanatory.
Yeah. Yeah, it weaves in and out. You kind of get these branches, but generally we try to bring them back in without like... What I try not to do with dialogue is have sort of like a hub where you're choosing one option and then it takes you back to the hub and you've exhausted that option, and then there's several other options that you didn't choose before. That's the way a lot of dialogue works in games, but I don't really feel like conversations work like that in real life. So we try to keep this like forward momentum with the dialogue, where like generally you're not going back, you're just continuously going forward. So even if you branch out here, you'll come back down and like loop back into like the main branch, but that's still got that forward momentum.
There's a lot of replayability value, if you'd say.
Yeah, I guess in theory, it depends whether you're interested in like seeing the other options.
Yeah.
For me, I kind of like that sort of like experiencing the game in my own way. So like that's kind of the appeal of multiple choice for me, not so much that like, oh, I get to see what happens if I play another time.
Wolfie Bowie on Steam asks, is the dialogue flowchart built into the game engine, or is that a separate tool you got later? So the thing we use is Fungus, but you can describe it in more detail.
Yeah, so Fungus, I can I'm gonna plug Fungus real quick because Fungus is really good. Let me get up Chrome on the stream. Where's Chrome? Appear, please. Why is it not appearing? Oh god. Streamlabs.
Shout out Fungus and Mushrooms, says back.
Alright. God, where's the right tab? Hey, you got Chrome up finally. Right, so Fungus Fungus is a tool that is really good for branching dialogue, but we've made custom commands. So some of the commands are pre-existing ones, but we've made a bunch of custom ones that help us with the transitions as well. So Fungus has a bunch of like documentation on how to use it as well. So if you're making like interactive fiction type things, like visual novels or whatever, or even if you've just got a bit of dialogue in your game, I'd super recommend it, because you know you can build your own extensions for it if you want to as well.
I really don't like the picture you see when you scroll down from this page. Just like a bunch of people wearing toadstool hats.
Regardless, it's a good tool. You should use it.
It is a good tool. It was a lifesaver for us, I think. Like,
yeah.
For quite some time, I remember. I'm sure we didn't use Fungus from the get-go. We're doing things in a very convoluted manner.
We did. Fungus is definitely something we used from the beginning. It's just that like I got better at using it as we went on. Like for the like jam version of Fiery Road, the God, it's the Fungus flowchart is so messy.
Oh yeah, I think. Yeah, I can't actually remember when we started adding dialogues. I remember we were kind of panicking about the branches not working in like in a summer event 2016, I think. We're like, oh no, like this flowchart's not working or something like that. So it was there around that time.
I think it was just that like Unity and Fungus were quite buggy at the time. And like there are a lot of like I was doing the programming at that point, so I think there were also a lot of problems with that that maybe contributed to it. But both Unity and Fungus have come a long way since then.
Yeah, I think it. Oh, want to become famous again? I don't know how to.
/ban.
Still want to become famous.
Hold on.
Bingo.
I've got it.
There you go.
For those watching on Steam, we're also streaming to Twitch. So if you're confused by what we're reacting to, that's why we're checking both chats simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to see. I'll make the scene window a bit bigger. But now we have these constellations, and so if I do the fern one, that's
can we get a zoomed out angle of this? Not angle, but like zoomed out. I mean.
Yeah,
oh,
I
so
mean,
just really just.
I
like,
can, but it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Because this is rendered on a separate camera, which is over here. And this is kind of to stop things from getting too messy. That's one of the reasons I put something on another camera. Is because when you've got a lot of objects in a scene, you tend to like, I don't know, get them a bit messed up. And then like trying to put things in the right like a realistic position can end up like meaning that they clip with something else, and it just ends up being a bad time. So quite often it's just easier to render it to a different camera.
Very noob question, right?
Yeah, I mean that's
so, you know,
that's your role in the stream.
yeah. So in this scene, or this
Mhm.
camera angle specifically, you don't get any other objects, right? Like, you don't get any of the backgrounds and stuff.
Yes.
Are
Yeah.
they, like, for optimization's sake, do they just not exist in this scene right now?
No, they're off over there. So these stars are just like over in the distance, but all the objects are still there.
Right.
For optimization's sake, honestly, there's not enough like mesh for it to cause much of a problem. We could like cull all of this if we really wanted to, and like it would make the game a tiny bit smoother, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's really not worth the effort.
So I guess if you do like a camera break thing, like that YouTube series thing, and if you break the camera in this scene, then
Oh,
in
like
the
boundary
edge
break.
you'll just boundary break. In the edge you'll just see like the garden.
Yeah. Also, I realized I haven't showed you over here where the text is rendered. So I flip this view around. It's all rendered over here. So if I was to move that around at all, that's just sort of like rendered again on a different camera. So essentially like layers in Photoshop.
Right, yeah. Owl asks, doesn't Unity automatically call that? So I'm assuming this is about like unused backgrounds in the current scene.
You have to set that up, I believe. So Unity has culling tools, if I can remember where they are. Is it in general rendering? Occlusion culling.
Lottie has a response. Unity will do frustum culling automatically. There's other types of culling like occlusion culling that you have to set up, so the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, that's thank you. A much more educated answer than I could have given. Let's skip past this bit and move back on.
I do remember you talking about like occlusion and culling when you made your very, very first game, Derive.
Oh god, yeah. That game is optimized terribly. So on the inside of the house here, we actually have a shader. Let's close the occlusion tab. We have a shader that renders the stars camera.
So it's like a
on top of it,
like a mask kind of thing.
Yeah, you can see it as like a layer mask. That is essentially what it does. So while we won't see the trees through it, we'll see the stars.
Yeah, I guess like a clipping mask.
And well, and like actually what we do with some of the cameras is clipping in another sense. So you'll see here in the game view on the left that you've got little bits of geometry that the camera's sort of cutting through over here. Let me see if I can find the camera that's doing that on. Main camera? Yeah. So you've got clipping planes on a camera. You've got one that's near and one that's far. So the one, let's get a better view. So that's the far one over there. And then if we set that to, say, 100, that brings it in a bit more. So this basically stops you from seeing too far into the distance. So I can bring that back like this, and clip the geometry there. But for the near one, so if you pay attention to the left side of the screen, oops, that's the size near. That then pushes back. Generally, the near one's used for like hiding. Say you've got a camera attached to, you've got like a first-person game. You've got a camera attached to someone's head or something. You know, like you've got bits of mesh there, and there's some that you don't want to show because it is quite close and it would obscure the camera. Generally, that's what that clipping plane is used for. But here we kind of use it for a creative effect. So we move on past all of this dialogue. So now you can see like the far clipping plane is getting pulled down.
Yeah.
If I click on the main camera again, you can see the numbers jumping up and down. And then at the moment we've just got a light that's fading out. So light, environment light. So we just take the intensity of that up again. That surround it. The default we've got 2. Whoops.
Nope, there
it jumped to no longer home.
Gone now.
Well, that I can also show you in this scene as well, because we use that for like silhouetting. So let's pause it right here, and we can kind of show you what's going on here. We've got a bunch of gizmos going on. I'm going to hide those for now, so we can just see everything that's going on. Alright, so you can see that we've got...
Wait, what's that? What was that, like, block there?
This over here.
Not really a block. Yeah, that there.
That's the door, which we have...
Oh, before it comes in.
Come in later on. The reason you can see this other colour here is it's got a shader on it that stops mesh behind it from rendering, and this is basically just to hide any like unclean mesh behind it.
Okay.
That will maybe make a bit more sense in a bit. So if I hide this plane over here, this is just like a flat 2D plane. That's basically just to stop the background color from showing through as we rotate here, because we zoom out at one point. But yeah, so you can see that all of the environment is silhouetted. So if we go light, we've got a ton of lights here, but our main one is the directional light here, which is currently set to 0. So if we bump that up to 2, then that's like the default values, but we've got a spotlight, so that's what's causing this to look blasted. Yeah, sent into the sun. So we can take that down back to 0, and then can we see the gizmo for it? There we go. There's a light there. There's a spotlight. So I can move this around. And that basically just...
That was nasty desk.
Yeah. And so yeah, what we do with lights is quite simple. Sometimes we give them a tint for a bit of atmosphere, like this. It's really just applying a color to it, but it works.
I guess it's basically like, you know, in stage plays or whatever, you have these like cameras, or not cameras, these like lights that have like very thin like film on it, like yellow film or red film.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that we're trying to sort of replicate that kind of feel. And so the reason it is in this perfect circle is that we've got a cookie texture on it. And so what those are basically it's a sprite. And so this it's like a black and white sprite that decides where the light renders. And this one's just a big circle. So if I was to take that off of that light, if I can find it again.
So, like it's basically doing like this, right? Like with your
yeah, essentially
like that.
Because this is actually a directional light which applies light to the entire scene. So if I take it off, it just lights the entire scene. Okay, so let's advance through all this dialogue. Forever sleeping.
Is there... So this is kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, kind of a unnecessary question, but so you know, right now with the lights, it's adapting to a 3D space, so it's not like a perfect circle, right? If you get what I mean, unless you see it from like up top.
Yeah,
like,
so
bird's eye view.
right. So that is actually a good question.
So like my actual question is like, even from any angle, can you ever have the lighting, like the spotlight, be completely like the circle? It would look weird, but like, if that makes any sense.
So I think what you're asking is about a different kind of light. So for that kind of effect, what we would use, where is it? Light. What we'd use is a point light. Let's increase the range here. Don't need the multiplier. So that's how a point light works. And on the shader, the point light has a bit of a gradient to it, which the directional light doesn't have. And I kind of wanted to keep the colors very flat during the scene, because it's thematically appropriate. Bo starts talking about how everything feels very flat. So that's why I used a directional light over point light, which I, I could have used this instead, and it would have saved the same served the same purpose. So yeah, you can see that like this is it's affected by distance, right? So if I increase the range, that's how that works. Does that answer the question?
Not really, but
No.
I think my question kind of doesn't make sense. So I think what I was saying is like, can you make lighting that completely disregards a 3D space? Like, so you know how light, so like for example, the lighting that's like lighting up Bona right now is a cutout circle, right?
Right.
But it adapts to the shape of like 3D objects.
So, well, I mean, if we take that light that's on Burnow, for example, it kind of is disregarding 3D space in a manner of speaking, because if we take it below them, it's still on them. And that's because directional light applies to the whole scene. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but I don't know if I understand your question. But we can also like rotate it, and that distorts the image from the sprite as well.
Right. Space Owl saying it might be global light that I'm referring to, but no, I think my question is very stupid.
Yeah, I feel like
really
you're trying to get
sense.
into like 4D kind of stuff. Let's undo all of this.
Yeah. So I think a very easy way of putting it is like, can you make lighting that's always completely a perfect circle all the time, like regardless of what angle you're seeing things from?
No. No is the answer to
there
that.
we go. Okay.
You could do a trick. You could do a sprite which would render in front of that mesh. Also had his cat yelling in the background. So you could render a sprite and like a sprite, and then you could billboard that so it's always facing the camera. But it wouldn't be a light. It would be faking a light.
Right, I see.
So if that's something we wanted to do, that's how we could do that.
Yeah. But we don't need it. It was just a question.
Yeah, generally if you're trying to go for some like volumetric kind of light, you fake that with mesh or sprites. So there is an area in the game where we do that, but it's right at the end, so we can't show it.
Oh, yeah.
And now we've got the tutorial on the screen, which happens in the same place the text does. If I can find that. Is it on this one? I don't know where we are now. I can't see anything. UI canvas. Oh my god. Let's search for tutorial. There we go. There it is.
There it is.
And in relation to the rest of the scene, where the hell is that? I have no idea. It is somewhere. But
it's not here.
I have no clue. It's probably just so far away that we can't see it. If we just select the camera, hit F, focus back on the scene. And then we've got these objects that have sort of descended, like props on a stage. And you can see like the upper limit of the wires, the sprites that are attached to them. Okay, so we've got UI here now. And so the actual icons are rendered in this 3D space, but the lines, if I pull this up, so the lines that are like drawings of the object or person are over on its own canvas. If we can see them, am I not zoomed out enough? Where is the canvas? It's somewhere. UI. I can't find it now. But there's a canvas somewhere else. Maybe it's hidden. I don't know. But once we click that, we've got some more flowcharts that tell us what's been interacted with. So we've got the UI conditionals. So this tells us, tells a game like what UI to render in the first place. Hi, Amy.
Hey.
So
connection to stage, please. So to quickly recap people on that, or maybe you haven't really talked about it much.
I don't think we have on the stream.
Yeah, I think Amy, you probably. Oh, Amy's like one of her course mates, and she is in the game. Remember that trip we went to the, was it Royal Opera House?
Yeah.
Workshop, was it?
Yeah, it was the workshop.
Yeah, the one that was in like Grays, I think, was it?
Yeah, it was in Grays in Essex.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you remember, but it was like they were making a rotatable stage, and we both saw like a miniature of how it was supposed to look. There we go. Um, and we actually took a lot of inspiration from that, believe it or not. Like honestly,
Yeah.
I forgot all about it when we started making the game, but so I was like, oh yeah, I remember that thing, and then I remembered. Um, but there is a lot more like stage play influence, like in terms of the doors and windows coming down. That I feel like that's coming from Death of a Salesman.
Yeah, definitely like very
Specifically,
influenced by Arthur Miller's work.
yeah, specifically the one where Bunk from The Wire plays the dad. I can't remember his name.
We should really learn that actor's name. Sorry, to sort of go back to what I was saying about the UI, this is how we decide what UI to show on screen at any given time.
I've never seen this screen before either.
So we have, for the door, we don't need a conditional because in theory that should always show that you should always be able to get out of the room. And so we just tell it to spawn. But for the dialogue over here, we've got a bunch of conditionals that are in yellow. So we check if the character is bow, we check if start dialogue scene is true, unknown geometry is false, and whether the player has seen this dialogue before or not, which is checked with this variable here. And then if all of these pass, then we show the UI. Once the UI is clicked, it then goes to over here. Here, where we say, hey, if this piece of UI is clicked, then initiate this block in Fungus. We also play like the animations within Fungus as well, so those are just placed between the lines.
So that's why if you pretty much speed run the game and skip through all the dialogue, they all do like very weird gestures because they're playing one by one.
Jamie, the dialogue tree is made with Fungus, which is free for Unity. So if you just Google Unity Fungus, it should be like the first result, and that's free. But we kind of made our own custom commands for it for doing very specific things, like zooming in the camera, for example. Oh, a thing I thought would be good to show is how we record variables and save data. So if I bring up the desktop display, I'm going to see Streamlabs for a sec. So over here is where we store saves. Oh, but since we're running the demo, we don't have a save.
Oh.
Okay, so what I can show alternatively is one of our debug saves, which are outdated, but you'll get the point. And those are in resources, debug saves. Okay, so you can kind of see it over here, but I'll open that up again in a text editor.
Question from Wolf Bowie on Steam. Do you write all the options in the script, or do you write everything in Fungus directly?
We write it all in a script first before we put it into Fungus.
And then copy paste into
Yeah.
Fungus basically.
Yeah, because otherwise it's way harder to do like an edit pass.
Yeah. So we have like a huge Google Doc document of all the dialogue, which adds up to like 40,000 words or something.
Yeah. So this is like what the save file looks like. It's a bit tidier now because this is an outdated save file, and it's all like sorted into like different scenes. But this is how, if you were to open this on your computer, this is what it would look like, and you can go in and edit the save if you want to. Like, be aware that it will probably break the game, but it's something you can do. And so, like, if you
do want to try speedrunning it and then just like entering the commands for the final save, then
you could do that.
It's not impossible, but it's not recommended.
So you could literally just change character to Al by doing that and saving it. And so for rotation, for example, so right now we can't actually rotate, and that is tied to this variable, unknown geometry. Because once you've seen the unknown geometry, then you can actually rotate. That's when the tutorial pops up. So you've just got it hard coded to that variable.
I think now that we're in control of characters, it might be worth talking about like the animation flowchart for the characters.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. So look at this mess.
Shit.
Okay, so this is the, let's zoom into Bo here. So this is the animator for Bo, and it's quite hard to read. There's definitely ways to make this easier to read, but essentially this Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Like, we've just been like accustomed to this for too long that we can't really be bothered to change anything.
It would be too much work. So basically, this decides what. Wait, this is Owls. Why is this showing me Owls? Show me Bows. Why is it not showing me Bows? Oh, now it is. Weird. I had to select it in the hierarchy. So you can see it's going through the idle, and every 20 seconds, I think it is, it will go to a long idle, which will choose one of two idling animations. So you might do a stretch, you might dust some crap off of your shirt or whatever. There you go, a little stretch there. And so here's the walking one. We pause this so it doesn't send us everywhere. And so, wait, God, this is so hard to control. Yeah, so this is the walking one. So basically, if our speed is greater than 0.2, then that activates the walking animation. And what that looks like, we cannot see because I'm not in the walking substate. But that is kind of, hold on, where's my preview gone? Unity? Come on. So as we move this number up, the idea is that the animation changes. So right now at 0, we've got idle. Move it up a bit, we've got walk, and then a bit more up to 6, I think we got on the, yeah, 6 is the jog. So it kind of blends it between those 4 animations. And then we've also got animations for turning. Is that a substate? No, it isn't. So that's less complicated. It's just a little step. And then we've got a bunch of like conversation. based animations, and those are all just like done by triggers. So we've got parameters here that we can trigger, and those are all, if you look at all these lines, this basically shows like what animations can flow into each other, and those are all tied to each other. So if you hit one animation trigger and then another, it will flow naturally into the next one. So if we go from a gesture into a stretch, that can like happen quite naturally.
So that's what the blue bar on the right is about as well. So
yeah,
that kind of calculates the time of when you want the next animation to blend in. This I actually know because I worked on it as well. But so it's kind of like balancing out animation to animation so it doesn't look weird.
Yeah.
Like, because sometimes, you know, you would have a walk animation and then right in the middle of it would transition to like a gesture, for example, and that would look weird. So you want the walk cycle to end first, and then you can finally transition into something else.
Okay, let's switch back to the scene view. And so let's have a look at the lighting setup we've got here. So at the moment we've got a morning light which will fade in after we interact with this thing. And then we've got a light that controls lighting specifically for this weird object here, which is created by Everest Pipkin, and then I went and animated all these bits. Basically what it's doing is it's just kind of scaling, swashing and squishing in different ways. That's to a degree kind of randomized. I think it's done in a flowchart, so I can find that. Here it is. So they're kind of set on loops that will kind of offset after so long, so you can kind of see them blinking away. And once we start the animation, they'll speed up, so this will activate instead. So we can do that now and see what it looks like. But yeah, this basically like a little relay. It's sending it from one block back to another. Does that on a loop forever. And once we get into this animation, it should. Well, I think maybe this is, yeah, now it does it here. There we go. So it's getting a bit wilder. If I pause that, we can have a look in the scene. And so this is made up with like a bunch of mesh that has like slightly different shaders that interact with each other differently. It all kind of renders over each other in a weird way. But yeah, you can see over here, so whoops. Oh, I forgot to like switch back to Unity view. There we go. Now we can see a bit easier. Right, where was I? The small plant. So if we hit shift and then click this, we can see all the objects. Wait, is it shift or alt? There we go. So here are the numerous bits of objects, bits of mesh. We'll flick through them, you can kind of get an idea of what they look like. And if we unpause, we can see them.
So with the room rotating right now, that's like the work of the camera and not the actual room spinning.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's put the gizmos back on. And we can see where the camera is. So camera is placed over here. So as I rotate you can see that's just spinning around, and that's just set to a pivot that rotates at 90-degree angles. And then you'll notice as we rotate, we've got some things that fade in and out. And that's basically done manually, where each object that we want to fade, so where's one of that fades? This object over here fades. Oh, it's get me to click something else. There we go. So this one fades. If I zoom into that, you can kind of see how that does that. So it's got this like diver effect on the shader. I think we can.
That was with the help of Florian Veltman,
yeah,
who works on Leovama and other games.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, this was like up till quite recent actually.
Oh, thanks for hanging out, Lottie.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Lottie. What was I about to say?
Sorry, Hannah.
I can't remember.
You were talking about
Florian. We were having the walls popping in and out just like instantly, and we've been wanting like a fade effect for quite some time because it's something that we've been wanting for like since 2016.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really find a good / pretty way for it to work, so we asked Florian if he could pull it off, and he did. They did.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks so much better because of it. Oh, walls popping. Yeah. So basically how that's decided is by this little script here, mesh render occluder. And so we've got it set to the south. So if the camera is in the south position, you can kind of you got the coordinates here. So if we move it south here, so now it's in the south, which is lit up. Now it disappears, and then click back on the game view. And then it's
I remember you doing a lot of math for this when you tried figuring it out for the first time, and you're actually sketching it out in your sketchbook.
Yeah. I wonder if I have that here. Yeah, I can show show everyone my coding back in 2015. I mean, this is like one of the diagrams I had for trying to figure out how that would work.
Yeah, I think it was initially a lot more complicated.
It was, and Addy simplified it. Let's go into the shader directly here. Let's we got a more interesting object that we can fade. Let's rotate again. Okay, so this wardrobe is maybe a bit more interesting. So we go over to the shader on the right side here. This is basically the fade is attached to the alpha value here. So as you move it up and down, it divers out of existence. And it's just a really cool effect. This is used a lot because fading properly, like where it hasn't got that diver, is like really expensive to do. As in, like it takes a lot of processing power. So generally, developers favor using this diver effect, and that's kind of like the industry standard now. I wonder if there's anything else we can show off. Oh, I guess for doors, so all the scenes are separate files. and so we have to have a script that tells the game where to spawn the character and like what scene to spawn the character in. So the game needs to know that that door leads to the kitchen and leads to this spawn over here. And if we drop down the hierarchy, is it in scene pivot? Yeah, so we've got spawns over here. So we've got 3 different spawns because there's 3 different doors. And those just store the coordinates to spawn them on. And then in another flowchart, in door conditionals? Yeah. So if we were going through the corridor door, we store what spawn and what scene to go to. And then if we want a specific angle to start on, we can set that here as well. Generally, we don't use that too much. We try to keep the angle persisting. So at the moment, we've got a angle at, is that northwest? So if we go into the garden, the camera will persist in northwest as well. Yeah, there we go. Let's go interactive autumn because we can show how difficult it is to sync animations up with 2 different meshes basically.
Yeah, it took some time to get this right, I feel.
Sometimes I feel like it's just a bit like, it depends how well the game's running as well. So we skip across all the dialogue so we can get to the petting interaction. So let's open up the flowchart for this as well, so you can kind of see what's going on in that. Garden, dialogue, bow, and autumn. So it starts over here, and this is where we zoom in from. It checks like the angle of the camera, and then it will use the appropriate zooming command from that. Okay, so if we pet, it will then go into this block over here, which will then call the animation here. And we have to like kind of figure out where Autumn should be flinching in relation to Bo petting them.
Bo getting surprised.
Yeah. It's a pain. I'm sure other developers have like whole systems to try and work this stuff out. It's very complicated to try and like make one mesh interact with another.
Yeah, and I think we've sort of been in talks of wanting to do like IK in terms of characters interacting with each other for a while, but it was a bit too cumbersome for what the game is.
Yeah, it was far too much work.
Yeah, so we never really looked into it. But I think if we were to do like more IK stuff, then there would have been a better system set up for things like this. But
yeah. Okay, if we go back inside, you asked about the door that was floating earlier on, and I can kind of show you what that material might be used for. So over here, oops, let's make sure I can't touch that, so I can just click through it. So over here we've got the window, but nope. It selected something else.
What is that even?
I
Oh, it's the
this
UI.
is the UI. Okay, this is what I was trying to find earlier. So this is where the lines are rendered. Let's bring this down so we can see the hierarchy. Yeah. Wait, is this the UI? This might be something else. It is something else, but it's in the same place as the UI. Let's just zoom into this. Nope, that's not it. Zoom into bow. Right, now we got our bearings again.
What was that even?
That's the skull that shows up in the animation later.
Oh, right, I see.
Right, so over here we've got the window where if we didn't have this bit of mesh over it, you'd be able to see the edges of the geometry whenever we rotate. So if we rotate that way, if that wasn't there, you'd be able to see this sort of like ugly mesh. You'd be able to see the back faces essentially. And so that basically means that like it will stop any mesh behind it from rendering. So that will look less ugly. It's a very small thing, but you'd notice it if it wasn't there.
Yeah, definitely.
We got Luna in the kitchen at the moment. Yeah. So Luna is actually eating out of a 2D bowl there. And all the things on the ground are 2D sprites as well. There's small places here where we've like simplified the geometry just to optimize it. Right, if you interact with flies, we can get this to move on, and then we can watch Luna walk from a bird's eye view. I guess a good thing that would be to go into after this conversation would be hitboxes. So
I was... Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking like talking about particle systems and stuff, and like,
yeah, we can
especially since we use them for the stars, we could probably talk about that as well.
Yeah. So you can see like these shurikens everywhere, these little gizmos. That's because the particle system that Unity uses is called shuriken. So any of those are particles, so the flies here are particles here. And it's got this very complicated list of things you can do to it. So I can increase the emission rate over time. I don't know if this is really set up to work with emission.
I'm guessing this particle system's called shuriken because it has like smears on it.
The spears is something that we added. Well, I added.
Okay.
Oh, and this has got some noise, so the flies kind of have a bit of randomness to it. Without that, they move a bit more linearly. They're actually like bouncing off some invisible mesh, so that they stay within that area.
Oh yeah, they're like the DVD idle screens.
Oh, I'm not touching the right particle systems. That's why it's not editing anything. Okay, so there you can see the mesh that it's bouncing off of, which makes it a little harder to see what's going on. But if we take up the emission, is that gonna do anything for us? No. Okay. Show me up. Start lifetime. This doesn't have noise on it. Maybe we do that some other way. But with the trails, so that's how that's got that kind of blur to it. We've got trails on it there, and that has a gradient on it, so it decays over time. We don't use particles all that often. It's used sparingly to kind of hint where interactions are. So if
you could show the leaves somewhere.
If I move over here to a place where I can't see this UI on the bin, these leaves start spawning. So bin bin UI, and yeah, so here are the particles. So we've just got like these leaves that spawn to kind of hint there's an interaction over here. So this is helpful in larger scenes like the garden. I don't know how many players actually notice this kind of thing, but the idea is to be like, hey, check out over here.
Yeah, it was a suggestion that we had while we got people to play test, because the game is very slow paced, and some of them didn't just want to keep like walking around the flat or walking around the room specifically to find a UI.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. So we added in these particle systems so that you don't have to like just slowly, agonizingly walk around.
Yeah. For the demo, so what I'm doing right now is just visiting every room. For the demo, we have a conditional that tracks whether you visited every room, and once you have, you unlock another interaction in the kitchen, and I think it'd be good to go through that interaction, because it's there's a nice scene transition to it. Alright, so let's do that, and we can show you what that looks like if we're just looking from out of bounds. So all of these objects are going to start floating in a bit. And so that's the skull that we saw earlier. We just stored it like below the level until it like got used. So it looks really strange outside the camera, and then we just reset it, and then fade it back in here. I think there's like a sprite next to the camera that's just covering it up for a while, and then we've got these stars rendering on their own. Skull storage is important. And then we've kind of, that's all again stored within a flowchart. Off over here, so dialogue and bow, TV disassociation. So it just runs through these commands. So we've got move commands that have coordinates and a ease and duration. So it just tells it how long does it take from get this object from point A to point B. And then the ease just means that you kind of you have a ramp up and down as it moves. So it's not like a linear speed, which feels quite unnatural. Yeah. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to know in the chat. Hannah, if you have any other questions, fire away. We can just like what I can do is I can switch to the main branch in the repo or repo, however you pronounce it, and then we can just kind of hop about in the game. I was going to talk about hitboxes, wasn't I? I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were.
What's your favorite asset/object you made for this? Ooh, Hannah, do you have one?
Probably. I don't know, actually. One of the, I think so. In terms of the environments, you modeled like the most of the flat. I modeled some scenes as well, but I think Sal did a lot of them in terms of indoors. But there is one particular scene that I did that I really like, but I don't really want to talk about it much because it's a spoiler.
Yeah, I think my favorite one might also be a spoiler. It's like a balcony kind of scene, and I'm quite happy with the model I made for that. We'll go for the game, and I'll see if I can find something that isn't a spoiler.
Yeah, I think in terms of the scene that I like, the one that I made that I like, you can find a screenshot of it on Steam actually. That's not like too spoilery, but kind of spoilery.
Okay, so once this is loaded in, we'll use a debug save to jump to wherever we want. And alright, so this is like the developer console, so I could just type in a debug save and then that loads that up.
Always the unknown geometry. I always default to this one as well because it's the only one that I know the save number to.
I just copy and paste the names of the saves. Right, hitboxes is a thing I was going to talk about. So hitbox, bin hitbox, and then let's expand that, and now all the hitboxes appear. There we go. So these red things are all hitboxes, and they also have occluders on them, so that there aren't like things that you could click that are invisible, basically. So if we rotate, you'll see some of them disappear and reappear. Let's bring up the navigation window as well.
While we're in that transition, Ananapier asks, were there any scene changes / transitions where you had to get creative with where you put sprites, etc.?
I can't think of any right now, but there definitely were. There's one that's quite spoilery, where what I did is I just rendered it on a completely different camera. Originally I was going to put it in place, but it just made sense to put it on another camera. And there are definitely places where I like actually put it in the 3D space it should be, when really I could have made it easier on myself.
I don't actually know which scene you're talking about.
The Kickstarter one we implemented recently.
Oh, right, I see.
There's like a sort of a scene where the walls part and it reveals a scene of like some neighbors talking in the background, but I don't want to show too much of that. Where was I on? I didn't get up the navigation window. Where is the navigation window? I can't find it. Weird. Is it under tools? Where did they put that? Oh, it's under AI. And the only one under AI. Okay. So if you go to... Oh, it's not showing it. But basically there's a mesh. For whatever reason we can't see it right now. Basically there's a mesh that renders... Well, it doesn't render. That generates for the floor. And that decides where the characters can and can't step. How do we show that? But this is how we render it. So we've got like a bit of mesh here that we make ourselves, and then we bake the mesh within Unity.
Oh yeah, it's the one we do in Blender. That takes a bit of time.
Yeah. So we manually create those because I just feel that it gives us a bit more control rather than like using the actual colliders from the mesh itself. I feel like that can cause some issues. But essentially the way the hitboxes work is it tells the character to go somewhere on that mesh. So when the cursor click interacts with that hitbox, so we've got this here, it tells the character to go to this target, which you can see represented by this yellow little arrow type thing. So if I move this over here and then click it again, then Bo walks over there, and it tells him what direction to look into. So whatever way that's facing, that's the way Bo will turn. We also have these for interaction, so Bo will walk over to whatever thing they've interacted with. But placing this takes a lot of time. You have to do it all manually. You have to tell the game, like, hey, the character shouldn't be able to walk over here. Like with Luna over here, we've got a hitbox on them, and hopefully if I've done this right, you shouldn't be able to walk through Luna. But if I haven't done it right, you can. But you can't, so that's good. I have done it right.
Which is good.
But you have to do all of that stuff manually. And like, so we've got hitboxes on the walls, for example. Like, you know, you can click over here, and then Bo kind of goes where you would expect them to. It's the kind of thing, like, as a player, you kind of take it for granted. You don't really know the kind of work it goes into it. We have hitboxes on the doors as well, so you don't have to click the UI. You can just click straight on the door, and that will take you into the next scene. So there's a lot of hidden work. Oh, now it's showing the mesh. Weird. Okay, so this is what the navigation mesh looks like. And actually, that you should be able to walk over there at this point in the game. So I don't know why that's happening, where you've got this. So that mesh hasn't generated quite correctly. So that's something I need to fix at some point. Basically, there are some objects that appear late in the game. If I search paintings, there they are. So if I make those active, those are the paintings there. And those also have occluders on there, so they should disappear now that I've rotated enough. So
I
that's
think I
yeah.
did this in Blender. Just this one like mesh.
You did,
I think
yeah.
I
I think
remember
you
doing
did some
this
of
one
those.
specifically. Yeah.
I quite like. We were talking about favorite objects. I quite like this messy pile of junk over here. I don't know. I just like how detailed it is in comparison to everything else.
It's really the only place where something's happening.
Yeah, because the corridor is just like this transitional area, and we do. Okay, so we do actually have Autumn appearing here later. Go search Autumn. I don't know if many people will notice this, but Autumn, not in that animation, but Autumn will appear sleeping there. So if I go to animation, and then I've got all the animations for Autumn here, he should be sleeping. And then can I preview that? There we go. That previews that. So that's what he should look like sitting down over there. I'm wondering if there's anything else that I've missed. I guess we've showed Among the Leaves before, so we can kind of go into the transition for the start of that. I feel like that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So if I copy the name of this debug save and then go into the console, that'll load up that save. Let's skip past this dialogue. And so what happens in this scene is these friends are playing a game which you can actually see below here. So there's the forest.
Cool shot.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with this. And then this is rendered to a bit of mesh that we've got on the TV over here. So this is using a thing called a render texture, which just takes the image from the camera and renders that onto a texture. So this is just like a bit of mesh. And as they start playing the game, the walls open up. And behind, we've got another larger bit of mesh that's rendered to. The reason I render it to this is so that you can kind of hide the change in the transition a bit easier, rather than like putting it on a different camera. And okay, so if we go down here, we've got the forest moving past the camera, so that's how we pull off that effect. And that just kind of loops.
Right. How does the seamless loop work? I can't remember.
That's something that Addy set up. So I believe the forest is made up of several tiles. And I think the first and last one are identical. So it just like jumps it back at some point.
Right.
It takes a while to get there because it's moving quite slowly.
Yeah.
You can also see we've got bits of mesh that make up the fog, and those are kind of just moving in an animation loop that's offset. Eventually we'll get far enough that you'll see the forest jump back. Yep, so we just had a tile just jump back. So that can go infinitely. Okay, let's go to the phone booth scene.
I guess before going to the phone, I guess like the clipping thing here is the same thing that we're using for Friary Road.
Yes. So yeah, if we check the camera over here, we've got a far clipping plane quite close. So it looks like there's some density to the fog, and you've got like the forest slowly rendering quite closely in front of you. If I bring that out further, you can see what's actually like the forest that's actually in front of you. And this is also to stop it from being obvious when the loop happens.
Yeah.
So you can't see too far ahead.
I guess this is one of the very rare cases in the game where it gets perspective.
Oh yeah, yeah. We don't use the perspective camera much in many other places. So you've got two options when it comes to camera. You've got perspective and an orthographic. Orthographic means that everything gets
like head on.
Flattened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then perspective. The further back something is, the smaller it is. It's like a human eye would render something.
Yeah. So orthographic is what we use for like the basic, the flat layout and stuff.
Yeah. That's how we get that like 2D look.
Yeah. Regardless of what angle you're at, everything is the same size.
So if we pause here, here we have got it rendered to two different cameras. So you can see that the bushes from this scene are moving up now, and that's rendering to this camera. So we've got a character off over here, and they'll walk in a moment. So you can see the scene moving in, and then we've got a background that comes in over the top to hide the forest behind it. And if we switch to navigation, you can see the navigation mesh again over here. This one's pretty simple, just enough so that they can walk along the path and then into the phone booth. We skip the dialogue. And then if we select this one, we get them to walk into the phone booth. And then we just have the scene
the entire scene
descend again.
Bop down. Yeah.
And we do that same kind of thing for each scene within the section of the game. So we've got them all down here. In previous trailers, people have probably seen the cave scene. So I think that's one we had for the Kickstarter trailer.
Kickstarter, maybe. Oh, I think we had maybe all of the.
We might have shown all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I think they just kind of happened very quickly, so it's hard to notice, but.
Yeah, so you can kind of see them coming in from the sides, and we've got all of this stuff off screen that you don't see at all. And so if we go a bit further on, once you get into the lift, that will begin to descend. So if you select this camera, you can kind of have a look at that. And we go underground, and the camera fades out. So there's like a small texture that's rendered just like right in front of the camera, and the alpha goes up. And then I've got another one here to hide that as we fade into the next scene. There we go. And then this is on the plant room scene, which is a like highly optimized scene mesh wise. So like this is like shown entirely flatly, and we don't move the camera around at all. So since we know that, we just get rid of any mesh that we know you're not going to see at any point, which is why you can see all of these like back faces on the mesh. And then you can see carrots over here that I'll walk in a moment along this mesh. There you go. So yeah, I don't know if there are any other things you wanted to look at, Hana, that you thought might be interesting. If anyone has any shots from like the trailer or anything that they were curious about, feel free to ask.
I mean, I guess we kind of went through everything, and if we show any more, it might end up being a spoiler. So
yeah.
It's not like story spoilers or anything. There's just a lot of visuals that we want to.
Yeah, we want to keep hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can stop it there then. But thank you for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow for a much chiller stream. Hannah's going to be doing an art stream. Don't know what you're going to be drawing yet exactly, but just like scenes from the game, I guess.
I'll just think of something on the spot.
Yeah.
But if anyone does have any like other questions that they can't really think of right now, you can always shoot us like a DM or a reply on Twitter or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we're always happy to provide answers. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow at 4 BST.
4 BST, so same time as today.
Yeah. See you all tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.